Tonight, when the sun goes down, you are going to flip a switch. Light will flood the room and you will not think twice about it. But for 99.9% of human history, that switch did not exist. When the sun set, the world went dark. And what your ancestors did inside that darkness would completely change the way you understand yourself. We tend to picture ancient humans the same way: exhausted, huddled in a cave, asleep the second the fire died, surviving, waiting for morning. But that picture is wrong, badly wrong. And when you see what the evidence actually shows, you will start to wonder whether modern life has robbed you of something you were never supposed to give up. Your brain is not built for the sleep schedule you are keeping. That is not a metaphor. It is biology. For most of human evolutionary history, your ancestors lived without artificial light. No electricity, no gas lamps, no candles reliable enough to matter. Just fire. And fire changes everything. Because fire does not eliminate the night. It shapes it. It creates a circle of warmth and visibility in the center of an infinite dark. And inside that circle, your ancestors were not sleeping. They were living. Jerome Siegel, a researcher at UCLA, spent years studying a question that almost no one had thought to ask. What do people actually sleep like when you take away artificial light entirely? His team tracked 3 hunter-gatherer populations who still live without electricity: the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, the Siman of Bolivia, and what they found dismantled almost every assumption modern medicine holds about sleep. These populations did not fall asleep at sundown. They stayed awake for 3 to 4 hours after dark, on average. They talked, they sat by the fire, they told stories, and they did not sleep 8 straight hours. They slept in shorter consolidated windows, waking naturally in the middle of the night, sometimes for an hour, sometimes longer, before returning to sleep. Siegel called this biphasic sleep. 2 phases, a first sleep and a second sleep. And the data showed it was not insomnia. It was the natural, evolved rhythm of the human body, which means the 8-hour consolidated sleep schedule you are anxious about failing at is not ancient. It is industrial. It was built around factory shifts and electric lighting. Your body does not expect it. Your brain was never designed for it. So what did that middle of the night waking feel like? You already know. You have felt it. That strange, still, unusually clear-headed alertness at 2 or 3 in the morning. The feeling that your thoughts are slower and more honest than they are during the day. Historians and sleep researchers, including A. Roger B. Ekirch of Virginia Tech, have documented thousands of references in pre-industrial European texts to the first sleep and the second sleep as distinct events with a specific purpose. People prayed during that hour. They thought through problems. They visited neighbors. They had sex. They meditated before that word existed. Your ancestors were not trying to stay awake in the night. The night was part of their life. Think about what fire actually does beyond light and heat. It synchronizes. When a group gathers around a fire, their bodies fall into the same rhythms. Their pupils adjust together. Their attention narrows together. Their voices drop. Research by anthropologist Polly Wisner at the University of Utah compared daytime conversation among the Kalahari Bushmen to nighttime conversation around the fire. During the day, most talk was practical, economic, complaint-based. But at night, around the fire, something shifted. 80% of nighttime conversation became narrative. Stories about distant people, stories that taught something, stories that mapped the social world of the group, stories that passed down the rules of being human. This is where culture was born, not in the daylight, around the fire after dark. Your capacity for storytelling, your love of narrative, your inability to fall asleep without your mind running through the events of the day like a film. These are not quirks. They are ancient. They are the inherited output of thousands of generations who use the dark hours to process, to connect, and to pass on everything that mattered. The night was not empty, it was full. And it was also dangerous in a way that shaped your senses permanently. Your night vision is not great. You know this. But you have rod cells in your retina specifically calibrated to low light movement detection. Issue, you have an elevated stress hormone response that peaks in the early morning hours. A cortisol surge that biologists believe evolved to prepare sleeping humans for the physical demands of dawn. You have a startle reflex tuned for darkness. Your hearing sharpens at night in ways most people never notice because they are indoors. Your brain runs threat detection protocols while you sleep that do not run during the day. You are still partly nocturnal. Or rather, you are crepuscular, built for twilight, built for the edge between day and night, which is exactly where your ancestors spent enormous amounts of their waking lives. Think about what predator pressure looked like for early Homo sapiens. Lions are most active at night. So are leopards. Your ancestors in the African savanna were not at the top of the food chain. For a long stretch of evolutionary time, they were prey as often as they were predators. The darkness was not neutral territory. It demanded vigilance. It demanded community. You could not survive the night alone. This is why you feel better in groups at night. Why parties and gatherings and concerts and campfires all pull something loose in you that ordinary daytime socializing does not. Your brain registers the collective as safety in the dark. The fire, the voices, the warmth. These are survival signals encoded so deep that modern humans feel them without understanding why. You go to a concert at night and feel something that feels almost ancestral. Because it is. The children of pre-modern societies did not go to sleep at a scheduled bedtime. They fell asleep in the arms of adults around the fire and were moved to sleep surfaces later. Sleep was social. It was something that happened inside community, not something you went off alone to perform. There were no bedrooms. There was no isolation. The idea of a child needing to learn to sleep alone in a dark room would have been, to any human ancestor, an act of terrifying abandonment. Not because they were soft, because they were right. Anthropological sleep researcher James McKenna at the University of Notre Dame has spent decades documenting what he calls the evolved context of infant sleep. The human infant's cardiovascular and respiratory rhythms are regulated, in part, by proximity to a caregiver. The breathing of the mother synchronizes the breathing of the infant. Separation, for a species whose young were carried and held for most of evolutionary history, reads as threat, as abandonment. And the infant's response, prolonged crying in the dark, is exactly what you would expect from an organism whose survival depended on never being left alone. The night was not the end of the day. It was the second half of it. And somewhere along the timeline of human civilization, you lost that. You gained electric light in the late 19th century. You gained the bedroom and the isolated sleep schedule and the idea that nighttime was a void to get through rather than a space to inhabit. You gained the alarm clock and the 8-hour recommendation and the epidemic of insomnia and the anxiety about whether you are sleeping correctly. And you lost the fire. You lost the story circle. You lost the biphasic rhythm. You lost the middle of the night hour that was, for thousands of years, the most honest and reflective hour any human being experienced. This is not nostalgia. This is biology colliding with modernity. The next time you wake at 2 or 3 in the morning and cannot get back to sleep, your brain is not broken. It is doing exactly what it was built to do. It is opening the space that your ancestors filled with thought and story and connection. The question is what you fill it with. You can fill it with your phone, with cortisol and blue light and dread about being awake. Or you can lie in the dark and let your mind do what minds have been doing in that hour for 100,000 years. Think, feel, process, remember. Let the strange, still clarity of that moment Be what it was always meant to be. Tonight, when the sun goes down and you flip that switch, the light that floods your room is only 2 centuries old. But the darkness waiting on the other side of it is ancient. It belongs to you. Your ancestors lived inside it fully every single night of their lives. And some part of you has never stopped trying to get back there.